let's start with this statement.
This meeting will be recorded and will be posted to YouTube and other social media platforms. By participating in this meeting, you understand that the recording could contain your video stream or your audio stream, including images of yourself or anyone in the room with you. If you choose to enable your video or audio device during the meeting, as well as anything or anyone else that may be in the background could be recorded. The recording could include any opinions you contribute and anything you say about yourself. On occasion, chat within the meeting could also be captured in the meeting recording. Therefore, anyone attending the recorded meeting may have aspects of their personal data recorded if they actively participate or not.
Okay. Do we have a vote to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all in favor? Okay, done. Now, my feeling is, let's move things around some. Sam, you have homework tonight, don't you?
I did it already.
Well, I was gonna say we're gonna put you on first because then you can go home and do your homework.
But he can get to bed early now, because he's gonna get up too early tomorrow morning.
Oh, you poor dear. Let's start off with what you have to say. Do you want to know the reason that it is the way it is first, and you can react to that, or would you rather go through and make your argument, and then we'll talk about why it's the way it is?
Is it so that the older kids can help their younger sibling off the bus earlier or help them get off the bus?
That's in the right direction. That's not really the reason.
Why don't we hear what Sam's done a bit of research. He's put quite a bit of things together. So if Sam's comfortable with that, he's got some things to share. This was actually his 8th grade civics project.
Yes.
Yep.
This is the project from 8th grade that I did. Chose this subject because it resonated with me. I've heard some things about it before. And the science proves sort of that it does the benefits of having enough sleep and waking up after the sun rises can really affect your brain in a positive way. So my proposal is to shift Quabbin District schools starting times 8 a.m. at the earliest. My research shows that this will have a heavy impact on students' well-being, mentality, and overall grade scores. Okay, so according to school start school later, students between the ages of 13 to 18 need 8 to 9 hours of sleep nightly. And with current starting time, 6% of middle schoolers and 20 to 30% of high schoolers fall asleep every day in class. So yeah, so I sent out a poll to the entire middle school on this topic. So the first question is how much sleep do you get on average? So the average was 6 to 8, with 8 to 10 coming in second. But the average, so in my research, I found that high schoolers and middle schoolers need about 8.5 hours of sleep every night to keep their brains functioning properly. And 50% of kids get less than that, which is not adequate.
What percent get less?
So right here, we can see you need 8, well, they need 8.5 typically. So 50% here in the yellow, 6 to 8, and then 20% is less than 6.
Sure.
So I also asked if school started at 8 a.m. or later, do you think your sleep schedule would improve? Only 15% of people said no, which is a pretty good indicator on what kids think. And yeah, so what I said earlier about the high schools having older kids having to get out earlier than younger kids, or having to get out, earlier than younger kids, is to help them get off the bus. But now this poll shows that only 20% have to actually do that, have to actually help their siblings. So it's, not a big issue that is, stopping this from being a positive change. how do you feel about the idea of school starting at 8 AM and being dismissed at 2:35 PM? Just a half hour, 35 minutes later. 60% of people say it's positive, 25 neutral, and only 15 negative. Okay, so this is sort of a shorter list of the benefits. I have a slightly longer list here and then a big in-depth right there. But I mean, after, if anybody wants to come up and see any of this, you can just come take a look for yourself, but some of the benefits include higher attendance rates, decrease in punishments, decrease in student-involved car accidents. So that's another big thing. Where kids, over 16 with their driver's license, they are driving to school on like sometimes 6 hours of sleep. And it can cause car accidents, which is a really unfortunate thing, and could be solved by just shifting the school start time a little later. An increase in grade scores, test scores, attention and retention, and then better overall mental health and emotional status. Okay, so early school start times prevent teens from getting enough sleep, as generally teenage melatonin levels don't really rise until 11 PM. And with schools in Massachusetts starting at an average of 7:38 AM, students would wake up too early and not have enough sleep to work on for the day, creating like laziness and ADHD-like symptoms. So effectively giving most kids ADHD. So yeah, as Dr. Allen mentioned, there are a few cons to starting school later in the morning, such as later dismissal time, which would leave less time for sports, extracurricular activities like clubs and things, and then homework time. Right, so yeah, so I figured that, bus congestion and traffic, because the later in the day, the more traffic there is, more people trying to get home. Also, that would mix with the elementary schools. The bus traffic from the elementary schools and the middle and high schools would sort of combine and create a larger issue. But so I looked it over and sort of decided that the list of benefits way outweighs the list of cons. And I feel like it's worth it to take these risks to improve students' mental health and learning and all sorts of things. So here we go, possible challenges again. And I think that's it. So yeah, thank you for your time, giving me this opportunity. It's something I feel strongly about because I have done research on it in the past. My mom has done research on it, has helped talk to government officials and stuff about it. And so I figured I would do what I could to see if I could convince you guys. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, stay there. We're gonna have a little discussion here. You know what our number one job is? First, most important, most critical thing for the school committee?
What?
Keep the kids safe. Keep them safe.
Right.
Before educating them, transporting them, keep them safe. That's our most important thing. And we have been queried in the past on why we do the older kids before we do the younger kids. And safety is the issue. 5, 6, 7-year-old in the winter, early in the morning, in the dark, is much more vulnerable than somebody your age who is intelligent, knows how to protect him or herself, and will do a better job of doing the bus on, off, all that sort of thing.
Right.
Now, that doesn't preclude moving the whole thing a little later. But I guess I'm quite convinced, as a school committee member, that the little ones before the big ones. No, the big ones before the little ones is a good idea. Kids are gonna get in car crashes, maybe we shouldn't let them drive. That's a simple way to handle, I mean, that's said only partly facetiously. I think they would be a bit disturbed by that notion, but we'll refer them to you. I'm being facetious. And after school activities, what time do you usually start with your practices, Dennis?
6 to 8:30, depending on the road.
What time would middle school start though?
Pardon?
What middle school? Cause they go in the gym first, right?
Yeah, middle school usually 2 to 4. Then the varsity girls 4 to 6 and boys 6
4 to 6.
whatever. Yeah, they switch, it's alternating. But there will be kids there till 8 o'clock plus in the evening.
What time do the kids have to leave the school to go to away games typically on game days?
Well,
Is that tight?
that's another area because as you know, we are the largest area school district in the state. It's 3 area codes.
Right.
So if my kid comes back from Tingsboro and lives on Turkey Street in Hardwick, it's a half an hour longer when we get home at 10 o'clock.
But what time do the buses leave? Like when we have a game in Tingsboro, what time does the bus have to
We'll
leave here?
around 2:45, 3 o'clock. Okay,
But you know, the other buses leave at 2:15.
I know, and that's,
we have to leave that early because it's.
and part of our challenges in these discussions in the past has been, like Dr. Allen said, we can't put the elementary students on that early because of the darkness. And logistically, having 5 towns where we are here and the distance of travel, we can't make our bus routes any longer than they are now. Our kids are on buses longer than we'd like them now, but it's because of our geographic distances. So that also presents challenges because when we looked at this the last time, we talked about, getting to sports and these things. So we couldn't make all the bus routes work and get everyone where they needed to be in time by shifting the start times. That was also.
And also losing half an hour in education, letting them out early, say middle school. If they had to get out.
If you had a later start time
Right.
and you let them out
Right.
early.
Yeah, and you may not know, we run all of the high school kids. And then the same buses run the elementary school kids. That's a economic benefit.
Right, so yeah, that was another thing.
Yeah.
Is that the buses would, along with traffic, you would need twice as many buses.
Lee?
Yeah, so great presentation, by the way.
Thank
We have discussed this more than once. I mean, it's come up every 4 or 5 years. We sort of come up and, we've read articles, et cetera. And definitely school committee members are in agreement with the positives you put up and we understand that. There've been articles on it, but once again, the mechanics, especially of the busing system within our large district, when you say pros and cons, it's almost like apples and oranges because in a way, I mean, busing to you or to us, I guess in one hand is a con. But as Dr. Allen said, we have safety considerations to take into place.
Right.
And we've had discussions of, is there something we can do with the way the buses are set up? Pushing it back and not just talking about the athletic part, but that's a big component of it too, because if we were to do something like this, kind of everybody we play in sports.
Right.
Would sort of have to consider and how would we do that? So it would almost have to be a group of schools going in lockstep.
Yeah.
Change it, which also becomes difficult to convince schools to do that. I know there are some schools, I think last time we were at the Cape or 2 years ago, a couple of the Cape schools tried to do it. They've been able to push it back. But once again, on the Cape, the towns are smaller. You're able to play with it a little more. So, I mean, I just want you to know, these are the points you brought up are great. And we were aware of them. We've discussed them. We've tried to figure out if there's some way we could play with that. And to tell the truth, it's kind of we've hit a brick wall. We really, the mechanics of the busing really puts us back.
And I think an important point to note too is some kids have a really long bus ride. When my daughter was in seventh grade here, we live in Hardwick, 20 minutes away, right on 32. Her bus pickup time is 5:59.
Mhm.
And in the winter, I mean, it's like getting her out of bed in the middle of the night. There's no way she's eating breakfast because looks like the middle of the night. And so it was very challenging. Not only did school, start when it started, her day started an hour before a lot of other people because she was on the bus for an hour and a half to get to school 20 minutes away. So maybe, instead of an extreme approach where start everything later, maybe we can think of some sort of compromise that would allow some kids, like in that situation, maybe, and I know it costs money, but if there's another bus route, maybe some kids could get picked up a little later so they don't have to be on the bus. What time, Sam, do you get the bus?
I get on the bus I only ride for 15 minutes. I get on there at like 6:50, so.
Okay,
Yeah, I would say my daughter's on the bus by, it's like 6:10, but we have to drive to the bus stop because we're on an unfortunate situation where the bus doesn't come down our road, so we have to drive her down there. She's out of the house by 6:05, up at 5:30 in seventh grade.
yeah, that's,
Get on
What
the
grade is
bus.
that's
she?
tough.
She's seventh grade and I was even in sixth grade.
Yeah.
And it really is like getting a kid up at 5:30 in the morning just to get them out on the bus.
Well, it's one thing, but you have to be up at 5:30 in the morning to get her up for breakfast, to get her to.
Well, I think my husband do it, but yeah.
But maybe
But-
there's some sort of compromise approach that we could consider that would kind of marry the two.
That might be interesting, Sam, to sort of research a little bit. And are there any schools in our area that are currently doing this or a hybrid approach?
So I know there was a school that tried it during COVID, I'm pretty sure. And they switched back when COVID sort of ended. And I'm not sure why I couldn't find much information on it. But I do know another kid in my class did the same. So did the same topic and did research that more than I looked into it. But Florida and California have already, I'm pretty sure California, the entire state's gone to this plan, so. They managed.
Northampton has.
Northampton? Okay, well, they managed to figure out the bus situations.
Yeah, they're a little.
So.
Yep, yeah.
Well, the other thing is if we shift later a half hour, now you have our elementary kids getting off in the dark in the afternoon, so that's also a consideration.
Yeah, they're picked up at 3:10.
From school, yeah.
Yep, 3:10.
3:25 is what time the buses roll out of the driveway.
3:25, so they get home after 4.
Yeah.
4:30.
And then another factor I think would be interesting, Sam, you talked about sort of extracurricular activities, but I wonder what percentage of our students have a job after school and if that would be a factor. And I also think about your 20.7% of students getting a sibling off a bus. It's not insignificant. It's almost a quarter of our students. So when you're thinking maybe about this hybrid approach, what's something we could think about to counter those kinds of things?
Right, so yeah, the elementary school kids are, kind of, they're there to stay and adapt to them.
I'm sorry, they're there to stay.
Like the elementary school kids, their schedule is fine, they wake up, late on time. And everything else kind of needs to go around them because they're the kids, they have to be the safest, like the most.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I'm sorry. I didn't know if you were changing one time and not the other, or if you had considered anything like that.
It's just, sort of the main issue here.
Yeah.
I just had a question on this one graph that you did, where 60% of them were positive. It was the next to last page. Did they give you any feedback why it was negative? As to,
I didn't get any feedback, no. On the negative, but considering this 15% there, and then 20% of kids have to get siblings off the bus, maybe that has.
Yeah, that's true.
Vision.
That's a great response. You got 425 responses.
Yeah, and
That's a fantastic response.
We can't get that.
No. I was gonna be talking to you when we need help.
Particularly the students felt very passionate about
I'm
this.
sure.
Yeah, that was sort of the thing is that, everybody doesn't want, no one loves to wake up at 4:30 in the morning to go to school, so.
Yeah, with your mom, Northampton has done it. This is their third year. So it would be curious to hear a little bit about their experience. I've heard, mixed, if they're going to transition back or not, but that'd be an interesting place if you could connect with another student from Northampton to just see, what their lessons are, the process.
Okay, well, I think this is well done. It's persuasive, not to the point where we're gonna change though. I don't think.
Cause it's been brought up 5 times,
That's correct.
But it's important
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
We agree with you.
and we
If we
need
can make it
to
work.
do
Nothing-
things that can,
Yeah, and the most important thing is you've done some very fine research and presented it well, which will stand you in good stead as you move forward in your schooling and in life.
Yeah.
Now, if you think there's anything we're missing, are misunderstanding, or should reconsider, and you want to come back and present it, I'm going to give you open access to do that because this is so well done. But you have heard our opinion, and what's the most persuasive to me is the safety.
Right, yeah, that seems to be the biggest concern with the whole thing,
I think so.
just the safety of the kids.
Yeah, now, I think the whole thing could be moved a little later. I don't know if a few minutes would make much difference. But then,
To a teenager, it would, right, Sam?
You know,
5:30.
yeah, but then that puts us sort of in where we're kind of a clunker with all the other things that are going on and a sort of,
It's so perfectly tightly packed already.
that's correct.
Cool, well, thank you for,
Thank you.
Thank you.
should I leave this somewhere? See if anybody?
Sure, why don't you
Yeah, good
leave that
idea.
and then we'll bring it next door after everyone's had a chance tonight to look at it. Does that make sense? I can return it to you.
Over here, is that all right?
Yeah, it's perfect. Thanks for coming, both of you, yeah.
What a great presenter for his
Yeah.
age.
Oh, well, great presenter for any age.
I was gonna say that.
True, yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Now, the other kind of outlier, I think here is why Dennis is here with us, naming new facilities. I assume that's why you're here.
Maybe.
Maybe he wanted to
Yeah.
see us.
I said, the other outlier, I think, is the
Oh, yeah.
naming of new facilities. I
Yes,
believe that's why you're here.
yes, for the dedications or the naming, which may be two different things, but.
Yeah.
To
Yes,
see what
okay.
policy you have considered that might come up. And I'm here representing a consortium of people, of groups, alumni and Mike Richard, who also runs the Quabbin Pride website, couldn't make it this evening, but he's on board.
Okay, he's a good guy. He does
Yeah.
good work.
Yeah, so we wanted to present it because I think we presented some petitions but maybe about a year ago.
Yeah.
Here towards that and just to get things started to show, to demonstrate, I guess, that there was interest. Generate a partisan groundswell of interest, grassroots interest in doing something like this because we have not done that in outside facilities so much. We've done it with inside facilities in the past. And in reading some of the, reading ahead here, I know that you've developed a policy towards that, so
We're working on it.
working on it, yeah.
And what's interesting is when the research was being done, some people didn't know who some of those folks were, like Roger Langley,
Hmm.
who was a giant in his field. I mean, not just here, but he was the founder of the ski patrol.
Right, right.
So I have some thoughts on this, but Lee, I know you you have spent the most time on this and done the most thinking and cogitating. And you said,
So, I mean, I guess I'd like to hear Dex almost first, but I just want to say that I had Jess do put the stuff together just because as a refresher, some of us weren't here last year. So there's like 3 pages here. The first one, naming new facilities, is kind of what we sit with that we decided really doesn't do anything for naming facilities. It just kind of kicks the can down the road. And we had the draft that we put together last year and presented to the full committee after a subcommittee meeting, which is a page and a half where we went through a number of items. And then the full committee said, well, you know, they didn't really give us any advice. And, you know, so we said, okay, we'll take it back. I put up a draft number 2. And draft number 2 has nothing to do with a second draft naming issue dated 10/7/2024. Second draft is essentially the opposite, if you will, of the first draft. The first draft gives us a way or an approach, even though we haven't decided on it, but bullets as to what to look for, voting numbers, blah, 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 blah. And we discussed all that last time. The second draft pretty much says we will not name any fields or buildings. And it goes through a number of, they're not bullets, but a number of 5 areas where we need to, you know, even if we don't name buildings, we have to look at things. And one of them, I know we discussed a bit I use the term grotto, but finding a place where we could do commemorations for people. My suggestion to the full committee, to the subcommittee, is that we bring those drafts to the full committee next week and say, okay, let's make a choice, either route 1 or route 2. Because we need to know, we as a subcommittee kind of need to know what we need to work with. And so that's why the second draft is here. You know, we can discuss that at any point, but I thought maybe having Dex make his presentation, sorry, I got my R's up there. Having Dex make his presentation first, and then maybe we could sort of discuss with him either where we might go or where our issues are. If everybody is good with that.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think that would be good to, you know, like new people or as a refresher too, because I think the committee kind of felt pretty similar to the subcommittee when we presented it. So, yeah, I think that would be great.
okay, Dennis?
Well, I don't really have a presentation to give. I was just here representing what the
Dex,
school committee wanted to
you
pursue.
always have a presentation to give, so please don't
Let's
diminish
hear it,
yourself.
DJ.
But I have read draft, you know, looking over draft number 1 and draft number 2, but I can tell what the grassroots is thinking, what we'd like to do. And I know we're rich here with history, text, and tradition in terms of dedicating facilities. We have the Corridon Trask Auditorium, and which goes back to my days, and you know, the John P. Sorelli Gymnasium in Ruggles.
And there's a tree,
And
Sorelli tree too.
yeah, yes, indeed. And the Sue Musnicki Middle School Gymnasium as well. And, you know, no disrespect to any of them, we don't call those facilities by those names. That's still the middle school gym and the Ruggles Lane gym and the auditorium. But I think it honors and certainly represents what those educators meant over the years to many, many generations of kids, really, when you think about it. We're focusing in on really 2 longtime educators and individuals who really started here when Bob had started, and were here for decades as not only as longtime educators, but longtime coaches and educators. And they really built the soccer program and soccer fields, literally, and the baseball fields as well. Those individuals back in the 1960s and 70s and 80s were responsible for giving us the facilities that we have. Both of them have distinguished themselves as Hall of Famers in state associations. And I'm speaking about Ray Turcott from Hubbardston and Mike Diamond, who both have since passed away, unfortunately. But Mike Diamond was the baseball coach. And I think if Mike was here, he could probably articulate it much better than I could. But I think in terms of the soccer aspect of it, we're not really looking to rename Alumni Field. It is Alumni Field. It has been, and it's known as Alumni Field
Yeah.
when you go there. We're really looking to dedicate or represent him as or honor him as the soccer pitch. I'm using a European phrase here, the soccer pitch at Alumni Field. The Ray Turcotte soccer pitch at Alumni Field. And even with Mike Diamond, made a Mike Diamond baseball field. And I know we have fields, athletic fields, A, B, C, and D. And I think alumni wise, we kind of like to say, well, who can we dedicate these to that we call them by a better name, okay, other than A, B, C, or D, and they may stay that way, but Mike Diamond with this field out here in particular was, at one time, was the only one that we had. And I think that we kind of wanted a memorial there, and I saw in draft number one, Lee, that no, excuse me, draft number two that you were alluding to, that you said that you would, there was a proposal not to name it after any individuals.
Right.
But there could be a memorial or a dedication someplace for that. And I know that many schools, in our league do have fields, signs up the Art Hurd football field and Westboro's McWinney Field and all that. And those are all well and fine, but we really want to distinguish these two educators that have really put Quabbin on the map, not only in athletically speaking, in athletics, but they were teachers here. Okay, Mike Diamond really began the physical education program here, Project Adventure, through many, many years and generations. I think Michael certainly had them in class, and Ray Turcotte certainly in the social studies department as well. And those two were just, and you think of all the athletes and coaches that they have produced over time. So we really wanted to dedicate that. And I get asked a lot of times, and as you may know, and Colleen was part of that tour with me with the 50-year reunion of the class of 1974, which coincided with Barry's 250th, which really is the major push here, because that class was back in the 70s and really seeking to honor these two mentor teachers, educators, and coaches. They seem, as I'm looking at, to warrant consideration for naming, the nominee will be judged according to the following criteria. And they check all the boxes. And maybe I am given a privilege here, I guess. Superior performance in supporting the QRSD mission and vision, effective citizenship in the Quabbin community. These gentlemen were pillars of the community and lived in the community. Lengthy and impactful community service, excellent character and general reputation, high standards of ethics, lengthy service in the school district. And we're well over 25, 30 years, and notable contributions to the and I had checked all of those off to make sure that they coincided with what draft number one was. Okay, so we'd really like to maybe pursue this and come up with something that would dedicate. Maybe I'd make a distinguishing a difference between naming a field and dedicating a field. Okay. I don't know if they're one and the same or how the committee feels about that, but we don't necessarily need a big sign up front. Alumni Field should stay Alumni Field, but the soccer pitch, because that field is used for football, soccer, field hockey. But when
Track.
soccer players are there, it could be known as Ray Turcotte soccer pitch that particular day to remember in remembrance of him, and the baseball field here for Michael Diamond. But I think that's important to dedicate those two for all that they've contributed.
Okay, thank you.
That is my presentation.
I knew
Right
it
on.
would be.
Time you're gonna give me, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have, and we will look over these documents. I know that the policy subcommittees work very hard and diligently on this. You guys have put in a lot of time, which is good to see the proposals.
Well, we have great respect for you and what you're talking about, and for the two men that you're positing here. One of the things that we've discovered along the way is who knows who the hell anything is named for? They sort of descend into the mists of time. I was talking about Roger Langley. Beside you, I'm probably the only one at this table who knows who he was, what he stood for, what a giant he was in the field, not just education, but for those of you who don't know, he started the ski patrol. He was our elementary school principal down in High Plains, at what I think of as the High Plains School, which was later named the Roger Langley School, which was then turned over to, I forget who, one of the contractors in town. Oh, yeah, we're gonna keep the school up as long as we can, and a week later it was flattened. So the school doesn't exist anymore, other than what, the stairway going up to what used to be the front door, I guess,
That just, and the rails are up.
and the rails.
But you gotta be safe.
And the rails. Now, I'm thinking we need to do a better job of honoring these people other than just the John Sorelli tree or whatever. And as we've talked about it, one of the things that's sort of flown by is an honor roll of some sort. So that we have in maybe the hallway outside of the middle school gym or something of that ilk, a list of who these people are. And as I was having dinner tonight, I was thinking that really is not sufficient. A little 1 or 2 paragraph description of who they are and what they are, and what you were saying about Mike and Ray. They started these programs, they elevated them, they made them statewide important programs, and they were very responsible, important people in the citizenry of the Quabbin community. And this idea of a grotto or an area where, I don't know whether they're listed again or it's just a place dedicated to the honor roll of Quabbin School District or something of that sort. So we have a listing of the people with a little description, and then a place where, a memorial place almost, where people could go and think. And how does that strike you?
Well, I think that's a great idea. We do have the Athletic Hall of Fame there as well.
Yes, we do.
And both of them are up there on the plaque.
Yes.
I think what we were focusing in on perhaps was maybe a memorial of granite behind the backstop for Mike Diamond. Okay, and maybe something in some part of the soccer pitch, the field, the alumni field, where you get a little memorial, something you can read up on Ray Turcotte, his history. Because we wanted to not only initiate, but preserve the rich history, text and tradition that Quabbin has been since it opened, you know, when they put the keystone in, the keystone in 1967.
Yeah.
Well, we mustn't forget about the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and all those educators and even the students that came through there at that time, because those are generations. But, you know, they maybe like to come up and visit that. And, you know, it struck me as even being more important when Colleen and I were given a tour to the 50th anniversary people that wanted a tour of the school. And I had mentioned to her that they were struck by the fact that when they went by the music room, that there were plaques and memorabilia and awards from the 1970s there. And one of them says, "That's my sister. That's my friend." Do you remember that? And
Those were the John Hanson days.
way back when, that still preserved rich history, texture, and tradition. And why those are individuals in their 60s. But why, and knowing some of your kids, why can't Tyler or Mike or TJ or Gubby come back and say, "Hey, look, you know, this is when I went to school in the 80s and 90s. early 2000s. Look, I remember this. We need something like that, okay, to preserve the generations and keep our history, text, and tradition. Now, text is easy because you can certainly write about that in the paper and the articles. You can go back in time and read it. But where is our rich history? Where can we locate that? Okay, and where is our tradition? You know, how do we name fields, or how did we come about doing that? And I understand you need a policy because you can't just have random, like the domino theory of we're gonna name this, we're gonna name this, we're gonna name this. But it has to be well thought out. But
You want,
I think that's what Dr. Allen was kind of alluding to, is kind of where we landed, was the rich history, and we now have a good inventory and grasp on, we think of, what has been named already. And we realize that there's a lot of people that really need to be remembered. And
Now
how
and
do
in the
we
future.
honor them all? Right, exactly, now and into the future. And if we name, we're gonna run out of real estate in a very short time. We're gonna run out of things to name in a short time. So I think that was some of the feeling on the committee is, just because we got some petitions, I mean, these people definitely should be, they're part of Quabbin history. But there's also some that maybe aren't being mentioned because we didn't get a petition. So that's kind of where we've been struggling, is do we make a part of the campus as a memorial garden and do bricks? Do we, so we've been thinking and kind of brainstorming along those avenues. And that's the reason we had mixed feelings about draft number 1.
And also trying to get some history as to how some of the things were named initially. Like, I didn't know, like, how did that gym get named after Sue?
Yeah, we didn't,
I didn't know that.
the school committee.
I
wasn't
mean,
aware of it.
and that's not that long ago, so.
So I think Lee and I looked at the list the other day. So it seems like most things that carry a name on them that are facilities were named at the time of construction or
retirement.
additions, right, Lee?
Yeah.
So the Sorelli gym, all the gyms at the elementary schools, right? It seems like those coincided with either when the buildings were being done or there was a renovation. And then the playgrounds were named really through a community process from all things, it seems, because there's like Brewer Playground and Stuart Duncan Playground. And then the one in Hardwick is David Huntress maybe and his wife. So those were more community-based, with the exception of the Sue Musnicki Gym. So the Sue Musnicki Gym just has a plaque outside of it. That did not come through school committee. And actually, the only thing we found that ever came through school committee was the recommendation to name this building after Dr. Maureen Marshall, which has not yet actually been done. So that was just sort of interesting as we went through them. Other things are sort of like, I wouldn't call it a naming, right? But there's like benches that were donated in memory of people, both wooden benches, tables, stone benches, depending at different schools, trees, things like that.
So let me, I want to do this while you're here because I want your, opposition remarks.
Can I
If
bring
that's the
up one
case.
quick
Oh, yeah, go
point
ahead.
before you go into it? I just want to also point out that we lease the elementary schools from the town, so the district does not own the elementary buildings. So there are things that are named for people that are associated with the districts, but like Colleen said, it was a lot of more community, so we're not sure what that naming authority would look like. We'd have to look back and maybe adjust the leases as well.
So just briefly, looking at the second draft, and it's not as extensive as the first draft, but obviously the first thing is just saying, it's our jurisdiction, the names. Number two, neither school buildings nor school property, including playing practice fields, shall be named for any individual groups, teams, or teams of individuals. That's just flat out. Three, those areas within the jurisdiction of the QRSD that are currently named or commemorated will remain so as of the date of policy's approval. And you know, the Sue Musnicki thing is kind of I hate to say it, the elephant in the room in the way, because not only did we not know about it, but I found out that at the 8th grade graduation, or maybe it was 2 years ago, I guess, our athletic director found out that day as he was going up and somebody said, oh, this is you're doing this in the Sue Musnicki gym. And he said, what do you mean? And so even the athletic department or the head of the athletic department was not even bought into the naming of the school of the Sue Musnicki. But at this point, I think as we sit here, we say sort of, okay, there are things that are named, let's let them lie there. If in the future, some school committee, wants to address it for whatever reason, they can do that. But for now, we don't need to really go there for any of these things. And the fourth one was
this question, based on that, this, the second draft, particularly with number 2, you making a distinction between naming a field or a facility versus dedicating it to them? Is there a difference there? That
as of right now, there's no difference. I mean, so the way I propose it, and once again, this language can be played with before it's brought to the full committee, is school buildings and fields are hands off naming rights. That's the way I'm approaching it.
because we didn't want to rename.
No, I understand where you were coming from. I understand that.
Put some history in there with some sort of memorial.
I understand.
That, like the Henry Woods building, which I go into which used to be our old high school.
Yeah.
There's something there that tells you who Henry Woods is, if you're interested, in Henry Woods's building.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Number 4, school committee directs the superintendent to initiate a process to create and designate an area on the middle high school campus. And I put, for example, a grotto. I'm just throwing something out there, but it could be whatever, but I just wanted to at least have a placeholder there. To commemorate those individuals worthy of such honor. The superintendent will also initiate a procedure to include, and in paren, to include students, teachers, administrators as appropriate, to review and approve or disapprove all nominees. Those nominees who are approved for a commemoration will be presented to the school committee for final approval. And my point here is that I don't think the school committee should be in this business, to tell the truth. I think we should say, okay, here's where we think we should go. We hand it to you, superintendent, and obviously the back and forth will hopefully be, oh, here's where we're going. What input does the school committee have, et cetera. It's important to me that students were involved in this because they're the ones who are in the school building. And for us to put it, whether it's a name, and nothing against the people you've mentioned, but to put a name where they may say, well, who the heck is this person? They don't know it. And I appreciate the historic aspect of all that, but I think students should be involved in it. And maybe that would be helpful for them. Maybe as a student would go through this, if they're on some sort of subcommittee, they could appreciate a history and maybe say, okay, yeah, let's do this for whomever this would be. But I think it's important to have students on that. As the continuing part of that thought, the second paragraph here on the 4, the school committee recognizes in certain situations a commemoration could be more appropriate at an elementary school campus and will consider the recommendation of the superintendent in such cases. And there are, we have some things that have gone, that have been put in elementary schools, memorial for teachers who passed away, et cetera. And that makes sense to me. So I think it should be something that's considered, once again, not running amok to throw names on everything, but going through a process. And that, once again, should be in the superintendent's bailiwick. Then the 5th one is the school committee recognizes it does not have the same jurisdictional control over the elementary school campuses as it does over the middle high school campus. Although the general language in the current leases between the district and the towns provide authority for the district regarding the points of this policy regarding naming and commemoration issue should be specifically addressed in the next iteration of elementary school leases with the towns. So there's general language in there. I want to say it's on the 4th page of the lease, which pretty much says, we control the stuff. We do, but as we see over the years, we haven't. None of this has been addressed. Nobody's come to the school committee and said, hey, they want to put a tree here, or they want to do this classroom. you know, what does the school committee do about it? It's never been brought to us. It's just kind of been done as a nice thing. I mean, over 20, 25, 30 years. So I think we need to, you know, we kind of need to get some control over that. And I think maybe it might even be when we speak to the towns and say, hey, you know, we both have a couple representatives. If the town builds a playground and says, I want to name it after Joe Smith, and maybe Joe Smith's not the appropriate person to have this playground named after. So I think both entities should have input, you know, hopefully reasonable input. So to spin the Lee Willannon spin on this, on why I did it. Quabbin, one of the most important things to me is Quabbin is an inclusive community. The best representation of that is that we probably have, I think at one point, kids from 20 different towns outside of Quabbin that come in here and are invited to here. And there are school districts and schools, especially near Boston, high profile schools that won't allow kids outside coming in. They don't allow school choice because they want to stay homogenous for, you know, for whatever reasons. To me, naming of a field or a building is exclusive because you're putting a name from somebody, and I have no problem with the two people you brought are great. But to name something after them excludes the entire rest of the Quabbin community, the entire rest of them. And we have a finite number, you know, as Deb said, of fields and buildings. And I just think I combine that with the thought of that Dick brought up, and when he brought it up last year, because I said something, there's you know, the elementary school down off Peach Street has like some guy's name and a stairway. And then you just came in and started listing everything this person did. I mean, as is your want. And I'm glad I sit next to you because I get all this stuff. And I'm thinking, here's somebody who should, you know, if we discuss this, they should be named after this. Who knows it except really Dick and maybe a couple other people? How many people don't we know about that have done outstanding things like the two that, you know, Dex's group is bringing in that we're not considering? I mean, it's sort of like we would be taking a vote on naming something without consideration of anybody else that could be there. And the reason for that, or a reason for that, is Dex's group, and you're doing what you should be doing for your group. They have a megaphone, and they've used their megaphone to come to us and say, here are these two people. We're megaphoning them in. Nobody else around here has a megaphone. I mean, do we have cafeteria people that have worked for 20 or 30 years and been outstanding that maybe they should have something named after them? How about the custodial crew that takes care of our places, that every year we talk about how proud we are of our buildings and everything, and yet should some building or something be named after the custodian if we're going to do this? I think there were I have a problem with voting on something so exclusive without knowing the field of voting. And that's where I sit.
It's a good perspective and it's all good points. I guess it's more important, Roger F. Langley, if you're a Barry graduate, when certainly this issue to many of us alumni is very, and former students is important because we're graduates of Quabbin. You know, something that happened at going on at St. Mary's on Vernon Avenue might be more important to the Willanons.
Sure.
Okay, because I have no interest really in dedicating gymnasiums at St. Mary's High School. Okay, which is still operating, I would take it, okay, or the old gym. But for us at Quabbin, because of our history, those things are important.
I understand.
Henry Woods Building is important, you know, for those people who graduated Old Barry High School. Okay, and I understand what you're saying is modernize this thing because the kids nowadays don't care what goes on back then. I think they kind of do in many ways, at least I do. But if we go that way, we may end up with the Taylor Swift music room, okay, dedication. And what we're trying to say is, well, let's go back in time when the Quabbin graduates were students there and they felt impacted and influenced. They use a TikTok term, influences. They were influences. And maybe these kids in the year 2024, 25 and onward or whatever in 15, 20, 30, 50 years, they're coming back and saying, you know, this teacher influenced me and they did this greenhouse or something. I don't know what it will be. I don't worry about it because I won't be around at that
Go
time.
ahead.
One thing I do want to say is, I hear like absolutely the preservation of history is going to be important in Quabbin. And I think personally coming up with something like a grad or Dr. Allen's point where we can put up a name and why they were important in the central area, because that is exactly what's going to preserve the history and not just putting a name on there and that person's importance is lost
Sure.
over time because the students who are coming in or families that have moved into the district don't understand
Yeah.
the impact. So I think having that area that's outlined really in number 4, and it would have to Lee's point, to have a superintendent come up with the right process for that, so that your group can come up with the 2 names and be like, hey, we would really like for something to come up for them, and the superintendent, whatever the process is gonna be, if it comes back to the school committee, can say, yes, we agree they should be commemorated. This is the important thing that they did. And students, alumni, families can come in to that central place and see exactly that history. And I think that's the one point to bring in what you're saying and what you're saying as well, to bring that in and marry that idea together. So it doesn't have to be at the baseball diamond, because that's what that person did, but it's in a central area to say, hey, this person is important and they started the soccer program and helped make it into what it is today. That everybody,
No,
maybe
make it better
students
than
when
what it
they're
is
on
today.
lunch could go and see it,
I don't think we're looking for McDonald's arches with names on it, so you walk through those before, like a pavilion.
Yeah.
I think we're just looking for something behind the backstop or something, in the corner of the soccer pitch, the soccer field that, and it could be multiple things there, like, they could do a Yankee Stadium or something like that, where the memorials are out there. Something very conservative, but modest, if you want to call it that. But it gets people can come up from the past and read that. And they're involved. Now they're invested again as former students or teachers or educators or family or whatever. And that's what I think what we're looking for. And I like the idea, maybe commemorative is a better term to use instead of naming or dedicating, commemorating something, which doesn't have to be grandiose in any way or set a precedent. So I'll leave it at that, but thank you. You can pursue those things there, but.
Well, let's say, just briefly a different tack. So let's go on another tack. So let's say the school committee says we're going with draft number 1. We decide how many signatures we need, blah, 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 blah. So your 2 guys get in, okay? So now summertime, you guys do your little golf tournament that you always do, springtime, summertime, whatever it is. And on the 19th hole, people are having a couple beers and they say, hey, we got these 2 people in last year. How about, Joe Smith and Mary Jones? Let's get some signatures for them. You're going to get the signatures because you have the group. So the people are there. You're going to look at the 8 or 9 little bullets we have, and you're probably going to find great people. I would think there are still great people because you have 65 of your plaques have been placed up there. So now you get 2 more plaques and you come to us. You meet all the mandates. So now it's like, okay, let's name a soccer field and maybe the cross-country track or something.
Big Lions.
School committee sits there, they say, well, you've met everything. Okay, let's go with it. Now you guys are rolling. So maybe the next year you say, well, let's bring 2 more names in. Within 5 years, everything will be named, all our fields and our buildings. And once again, it's because more power to you. You have the megaphone. You've got an organized group that could do this type of thing to the detriment of everybody else in the district in a way.
We're not trying to make it a competition.
I'm not saying you are, but it could happen that way. That's what I'm saying. You guys are operating the way you operate, and more power to you. But we kind of have to operate what's the sense of fairness here? What's the best approach to take? If it's if it was something where, maybe we had 15 or 20 names to pick from, and I'm not saying I would support that either, but that might be one thing to say, this person 20 years, this person 25, maybe they became an airline pilot. Who knows? But the thing is, we don't know. There are so many people I don't know that I'm thinking could be on these buildings if we're going to do it or on the fields, et cetera. And I'm just not gonna know that. And I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair to the unknown people, I guess is what I'm saying.
I think that we recognize Mike and Ray better to a much broader audience. We have an honor roll sort of thing with the description of their names, not on the field, but opposite the middle school gym or the Subcommittee gym or whatever. 20 years, who's gonna know who Sue is? Like most people don't know who Langley is.
Well, so
I'm trying to take your idea
these
and make it work better.
honor rolls where they actually did their work as educators.
Yes.
Okay, I cannot, that's why, but I wanted it, behind a backstop for baseball or, corner of the soccer field somewhere and
Yeah.
something modest, yeah. That I think would maybe eliminate what you're saying and having to put up signs and symbolic things and gates with names and, there's only been 3 naming of facilities in the 57-year history of Florida.
And that,
Sorelli, Nicky, and Corin and Trask. So I don't think there's a groundswell of people beating down the door trying to come up with petitions.
yeah, but that's most of the buildings.
Pardon?
That's most of
The gym in every
Some sort of
elementary.
Commemorative thing behind the backstop, because in 25 years or 30 years, when we're not here, there's gonna be somebody else that did something really good for the baseball thing.
Who's not gonna be?
Added to that.
Who's
Can
not
I
gonna-
just say
Probably
something?
not me, but
That's what, Peggy makes a good
It's
point.
We have a long time
And
principal.
and added to, I mean, over on the soccer field, you got Ray Turcott. Yeah, he deserves a corner or a plaque, in the ground somewhere. But there's gonna be a time when maybe Ryan Wine did some super thing for soccer and he'll get a commemorative in 50 years, I
The
mean,
Peggy Bass.
there you go,
Thompson
or Dennis,
basketball
I mean,
court.
I think that it could be
I think Tricia won.
Yeah.
done.
Okay,
I-
Tricia,
I was just gonna say, I understand what Dex is saying, and they did do something for my dad, because he was really into sports and he did a lot of little league and minor league and stuff, and it was
was
such
this
a.
Leach in North Brookfield?
Yes, and
Wonderful
it was
person,
just, I'm sorry,
wonderful person.
that's, you're thinking my grandfather, I think, but
Okay.
for my father, they, it was just a little plaque. You wouldn't even know it was there. But it was just, they wanted to represent all the hard work he did with the sports, so, I mean, I get what Dex is saying, I mean, it doesn't have to, the whole baseball field's not named after him, it's just a plaque that goes on the back of
Commemorative,
the
yeah.
backstop. Just
That's
Even
why I
if
was
it's in
thinking-
the ground, so it could be mowed over and, kept clean.
Ideas there and.
We have bricks
Yeah.
out here
Yeah, see, I think that,
behind the baseball field.
Mhm.
yeah, they would be better remembered, represented to the broader audience if we had this on a roll with a description. Because I think Jackie Bryant and Jim Beshta. I don't know how many people know that. Anybody who knows the history of the school, say, who are the 5 best teachers? Those 2 would be on any list of 5 best teachers.
I love him. He told my daughter, "You're gonna be okay." She came in English class, "You're gonna be okay."
Yeah.
In English.
So I mean, I think we get a broader spectrum doing it that way too. I think that things could be skewed toward athletics because we know athletics more than we know classroom teachers. But I don't know.
Hurts my heart.
I think there's a place for both, actually, Dr. Allen. I mean, I think there's a place because not everybody sees the baseball field. Not everybody sees
Right.
the soccer field.
Yes.
And not everybody goes into the building, I mean,
And we also talked about involving students.
I love going to other,
Teach, it's not inclusive of just athletics because we are gonna run out of fields in a very short time. So that's why we just want to make sure that we have something fair and equitable to all that come to us. We want to have a policy that makes sense, that's simple for us to manage and understand and the public to understand our requests. But we don't want to miss a lot of people that could have great achievements that, you know, just because they didn't get the signatures and come to us. So that's why the school committee kind of had all these same discussions over, we've worked on this a lot in the past year, and we've had it in several different committees at a time. So we have been trying to really give it good thought and what can make sense to be equitable to all. So that's kind of our rationale and how we've landed on draft number 2.
Yeah, we have great respect for the people you're positing. And for you and your group for positing them. And that's why we've taken the time and the effort and not just kind of, but do you have any, I mean, you kind of heard what our thoughts are. Do you have any final comments or summation or?
Well, I like the discussion that's been generated. You're trying to do what's best for everybody here. And there's a lot of good things, but I think we need to pursue something along those lines, whether it's commemorative naming or dedication. But I like your idea of a honor roll or something that, and Peggy brought up like, well, listen, 40, 50 years from now, there may be another great educator or baseball coach that has a plaque behind, as said, be next to
Right, yeah.
Michael Diamond
Yeah.
or soccer coach, you know, Ray, and what an honor for them to be part of that history. And I think, you know, I'm because I had a thought and showed up and we had to honor these two guys. There is a movement underway that people wanted to see some of these things. And it's good to have that interest from the alumni and in general and preserve their memories. And who will know Jim Bester if we don't honor his poetry and his class time, right? Okay? And
Or Jackie Bryant.
or Jackie Bryant in math. And those things are all important, but a lot of good ideas here. And we certainly, I want to make sure that we understand that we're not trying to be adversarial in any way. We're just trying to come to say, well, what can we do?
Well, your idea of preserving the history,
Yes.
I think, is the central thought and theme of this whole thing. That really is an excellent idea.
Well, Dr. Allen, with history comes culture. And the way, what is culture? The way Quabbin has always kind of done things to make us what I consider one of the best, if not the best school district in the state. Preserve our culture, but how do you do that? And, you know, I think these are some of the things that we have to do, and how we do it is probably the process.
And this is how we do it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Thank you for the audience you gave me.
Well,
I know you have other business tonight, so I didn't want to tie it all up, but.
Oh, thanks for coming in and talking with us about this.
So what's your thought? Should we present both to the full committee and see what the full committee wishes to do or what direction they want to go in or?
Let's present these two.
Right.
But this idea of an honor roll with a grotto, and I think there should be, it's important to have a little description of each of these people.
But that would be under the number 2. Draft,
No,
right?
you're right,
Yeah.
yeah, number 4. And the superintendent and I, you know, when we talked about the grotto, but you know, for our kids, there are a number of things I mean, our kids are computer oriented. If we had a commemoration, like, you know, let's say a rock, you know, with somebody's name on it and maybe just something briefly underneath under, you know, athletic or this or that. And then we would have a website. And so if the kid said, John Smith, John Smith, oh, they're under basketball. Let me see, you know, so they could go on the website and there might be, I mean, not just a little paragraph, it could be a whole history of the person, or if it's whatever, what team are you guys celebrating this in November? One of the teams, I think.
Yeah, Coach Diamond's state championship team back in 72, 73.
Right, so there might be a big stone there saying the 73 team, and somebody says, geez, I'd like to find out, or I think my grandfather or uncle might have been on a team. They could go online and say, oh, here's the whole thing of the team, maybe get the whole record or you know, I mean.
We've talked about a good capstone project.
I think it's a great capstone project.
Way to keep all those generations who have graduated Quabbin interested and engaged, the way I look at it. They're voters. We need to pass budgets. Their kids are here.
Well, if
Their
we,
grandkids are, their grandkids are here.
But if we had this, like, say, Hall of Fame, right? So it's not just the Hall of Fame for athletics, like Quabbin's Hall of Fame,
Mm.
you know, students, teachers, anyone who is really kind of.
Yeah, Dr.
Good,
Allen made a
right.
good suggestion,
So-
honor roll or.
Yeah, and we could have pictures, we could have descriptions, we could have QR code link into the website, like we have. I mean, sky's the limit, so.
And the only thing I would say before I leave is, but put it in a place where it's visible for people. And not where you
Absolutely.
would be walking through the school and put your coffee cup down on because it was.
Right, no,
Yes.
But that wouldn't be the point.
no, no,
Yeah.
no, this would be like a memorial type area,
Yeah.
you know?
Mhm.
And I think just
Well,
as,
thank you for your
and
time.
just as important as
Okay,
the
well-
alumni coming back too, is the kids learning about it and knowing their own history.
Of course, it's very, very important.
Thanks for coming in and talking to us. Dan.
Thank you for your time and all what you guys do. It's great. I'm gonna use the Elvis exit if I can.
Gotcha.
All right, well, where we were, Lee, was what to present to the full school committee. I think draft one, draft two, and then kind of what I think we're kind of agreeing on this honor roll or something with a description and the grotto, either online or physical.
Right, and even as Peggy said, I mean,
I like the plaques.
yeah, if somebody wants to bring up, say, okay,
find the comment.
is there a way we could do, you know,
Because there will be others that will come.
a stone or a flag? Not only others coming from, once again, I'm still sitting here saying, I can think, I mean,
Sure.
I don't know a ton of people, as many as maybe you do, but there are some people I know through athletics, et cetera, and I would say they could have something right away. I mean, you're talking maybe
course,
50
yeah.
years ago. I'm sitting here thinking, to do something like that, you could,
But you
I could get 5 or 6.
To get to this point for those two gentlemen that he's talking to. And so, I mean, I think it takes a while for someone to come back and say, well, Dennis Dextrator, pain in the butt, was very good and instrumental with basketball. I mean, rightfully so, you know, I mean, and there just seems, I agree with putting the plaque behind the diamond, because kids will look at that and go, who's Mike Diamond, you know? And like you say, it'd be fun to look it up and say, what did he do to get his plaque behind that diamond?
And it'll be on the honor roll in the corridor down there.
The thing with plaques though is not, I mean, once again, you know, talking
Or so-
athletics, but you know, once again, you get to other areas of expertise. I mean, I think it's something like, you know, we've had a good handful of kids that have gone to have been accepted to military,
Yeah,
academy, which is a
right.
big deal.
Yeah.
As far as, and I don't know what they've done.
What
I
their
really
level is,
don't. And
yeah.
it's like, gee, maybe, you know, that should be something that should be at least somewhere. So maybe a freshman or sophomore could say, geez, I'd like to go to military academy, and it's doable because we've had kids do it here. I mean,
We have.
I don't want to just look at
Limit
the
ourselves, yeah.
athletic aspect. of
We
it.
have current graduates who are teaching in our schools already. I mean, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
we have generations in our schools. I'm certain Lee is right. We could probably warrant something for most students and, you know, many have contributed. So I think I really like the second draft. I think it kind of draws the line in the sand, and I think we just need to put a stop because it will be endless. And I think having a more thoughtful way, area, grotto, hall, whatever it ends up, memorial garden, but those big plaques are expensive too, so we can't be just, you know, giving
Well,
them.
we can if
Well,
we choose.
We could, but I mean, we need to be
We
thoughtful.
couldn't get Hubbardson to vote for it, but. other-
We could not, definitely not. Unless we were
Okay,
changing it to the
does that,
Hubbardston
As
School.
long as it's shared equally, I think it's gonna be
is everybody relatively in agreement? We'll present one, we'll present two, and then I'll give a summation of kind of where we are. Of an honor roll with a description and maybe a grotto, either physical, online or both.
So are we not going with the plaque idea behind the diamond or the, over on the soccer field?
Well, I mean, it should be discussed.
Yes,
You know, I mean, really.
That's what I'm asking.
yeah, why don't you bring that up?
No,
Yeah,
I'm
great,
not.
Great,
Bring that up.
because I think that could start something, you know, and now, I'm not talking big.
Yeah.
You know.
But once again,
But then you have to upkeep it too. Right?
yeah,
Like,
well, you don't want it messy.
Yeah,
no,
well,
but facilities is gonna have to trim around it and make sure it's maintained, you know, it's.
Yeah, so like, I think if we were to do something like that, we'd either have just in my opinion, it was like, have to have it, but it would be wise to have something that was central, whether it's, maybe it's just like a general community contribution that's maybe inside of the school for academics. And maybe there's an area that's central for athletics, instead of having plaque here, a plaque here, a plaque here at each field. Maybe there's a wall behind alumni field.
Can make that song.
That's.
Here a
that's
plaque,
not
there a
necessarily
plaque,
Hall of
everywhere a
Fame,
plaque,
but-
plaque.
Yeah, that way, because when you do think about maintenance of it, if someone is trying to like uncover some brick that's at a corner of a field that may get covered in time with grass and stuff versus that central area that athletic commemorations could be, or maybe it's just one for everybody, again, just to make sure that we're not creating a maintenance nightmare, because I could just imagine. I mean, I have stones in my yard that have gotten covered with grass over the years because nobody cleared them off, and I wouldn't want that to happen with something like that either.
See, that's why it goes to the superintendent.
Right.
And she gets some committee together. Because maybe some kids would say, you know, we would like bricks or something like that. And then the discussion is, okay, how do we keep them clean? Well, I mean, once again, a community discussion as to how to best represent the best of our community. I mean, to me,
Yeah,
that's,
like-
I mean, it should bounce by us, obviously, and I think it will, but I still think it's in the bailiwick of the superintendent and the people she wants to work with her on this issue. I mean, that's what I think. I think, I guess we would act like, the appellate court. It's like it comes through and, here we want, this person or this person, or we want to approach it this way, do it this way. And then our discussion will be, hey, it's a great idea, or maybe add ideas, or, maybe not so great idea. I mean, I think that should be our role, as opposed to us voting on stuff and voting on people and voting on teams and that. That's kind of the point I'm coming.
Yes, I think the committee would have difficulty voting on Jimmy Besta and Jackie Brown.
Because they don't know.
Yes.
You're right.
Lee, can I make one suggestion?
Sure.
So I feel like Alicia was talking, but I'm not sure. When they were talking about bullet number 4 in the second draft, someone said, and I think it was just an error, but I thought, oh, we should maybe include that. A procedure to include students, teachers, administrators. Someone had said alumni, and it's not in here. And I did think that may be important, because if
Okay.
we don't have someone who's an alum that might be more from that generation, it might be hard for us to get the
Sure.
story.
Right.
Mhm.
So I thought maybe we should add that.
Good idea.
And once again, the whatever subcommittee there would be, that could be part of the protocol of like, okay, if we want Jane Smith, something dedicated to her, somebody should come in to represent, if she's deceased, someone should come in to represent Jane Smith and say, just like Dex just did, say, okay, here's why Jane should be there. And,
He made a good,
pros and cons.
Yeah.
very compelling argument for the two of them. Yep, okay. We're all in agreement?
Sure.
Okay,
Agree.
all right. And on the plaques, I'm gonna look to you too.
I'll speak,
I thought maybe you would.
even if it's on the back of the dugout,
Okay,
on the back of the,
I know, but
I know we had talked about doing something with the, if we ever got the,
It's just tricky because not
I
all
know.
sports have something.
right.
And
To
where
put
do you
one
put
person-
teachers?
yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's
It's tough,
tricky.
So,
but I do think it'll start a wheel rolling of others probably.
so what if we had a wrestler that was state champ at least 2 years, if not 3 years? Where would we put his plaque?
we'd be looking at
That's done with the athletic,
athletic honor roll.
thing they do,
I mean, does the Athletic Hall of Fame do already
yeah.
what, do you know what I mean?
like these two gentlemen are already there. They are being commemorated already.
Yes,
Yeah, they have 65, I believe is the number of athletes or groups or teams who have been commemorated.
and they got a bunch
Yeah.
more coming in November.
Complex, and they have 5 more coming in November.
Yep. Okay, enough on that one. Policy AD, Going,
So this is our school district wellness policy. So we have to resubmit our wellness policy every so many years. We have a wellness committee that meets, that includes a parent. Our food nutrition director was on it last year. Trisha Worthington was our school administrator. Kim Stady was our nurse. So we have been kind of working on this for probably the last year and a half, to be honest with you. And any of the revisions are in red, but I thought I'll just point out a couple sort of biggies.
the
Some things
reds are
just-
deletions or additions?
they're additions. The strikeouts are deletions. But I thought I would just point out a couple important sections. So on the bottom of page 2, it's just really about making sure that the schools and their improvement plans are aligned with our wellness policy. At the top of page 4, it's about making sure that we encourage families to fill out the free and reduced lunch application. That hasn't been as much of a thing lately because we've had free and reduced lunch, but we felt like it was important to keep it there in case that doesn't continue to happen.
You
There's,
use that for other purposes?
sometimes we do, and the state uses that information for funding.
Okay.
So it's important to us. A dedicated lunchtime, that there's a minimum of 20 minutes to eat for our students. Most of our elementary kids have a half hour and our high school kids have a half hour, but the minimum requirement is 20 minutes. There's a section about staff and employee wellness and including healthy nutrition in our healthy habits course, which is a new course for 6th grader. Under celebrations and ideas and rewards, we always talk about promoting physical activity as a reward versus food and things like that. And thinking about healthy food options versus, M&Ms or things like that.
Now, that is very important. Used to drive me absolutely nuts. At least once a week, some school fundraiser would be banging on my door wanting to sell me candy. I didn't want goddamn candy. And I didn't want somebody so we reduced significantly the ability of school groups doing fundraising, and particularly candy. We used to sell soda and soda machines. And I think, is it
Gone.
juice or is the whole thing?
Water mostly.
Water, juice. Yeah, so
There's some,
that, once upon a time, that was a big issue for me.
so this includes,
Well, there's a fundraising.
yep, promoting healthy foods as fundraisers. We're still gonna get the Krispy Kreme, I can guarantee you, but we're trying to really look at
Popcorn.
alternatives.
That's
Yeah,
popcorn
popcorn,
today.
right, yep. The next section of physical activity during the school day. So you'll see a few edits here. We added on, because this has been a goal of ours in the district, incorporation of social emotional learning practices and our culturally linguistically responsive teaching and learning. So we wanted to actually call that out because we've been doing so much work with it, and it aligns perfectly with the physical activity breaks. Also, we have written PE curriculum, but it's not documented somewhere, so there's a push on that. Our time for physical education had not been outlined in our wellness policy before, but we're including that, as well as making sure that our PE teachers have the appropriate licensing and that they get professional development that's aligned with their roles. Some of our outlier teacher groups, as you're probably aware, struggle to find professional development for their content areas. So we're really prioritizing that. They actually do go to a conference every year that is for physical education teachers, but we felt like it was really important to keep that in there so that if someone else came along and was reading the wellness policy, they would see that. The adoption of evidence-based social emotional curriculum, which we've done that. and learning opportunities to support mental health. So we've talked a lot about this in the past couple of years. We do signs of suicide activity with our students. This is just really putting into play that historically, some of the things we've done over the past couple of years are now going to become part of our wellness policy. We've included financial implications. We've talked about personal finances. We put that in Part C. The health class is still there. The wellness team, really, this is something that's different. And the wellness team had a lot of discussion back and forth about this, but under the marketing of healthy choices, really calling out that any events that are sanctioned by Quabbin or sponsored by Quabbin, we're sort of, that is yellow for a reason, because I want to hear your feedback on this. Will include healthy choices, and no alcoholic beverages will be offered in settings where students are in attendance. Now, I just want to paint a picture for you because it may seem like, isn't that obvious, Colleen, right? But I believe it was probably common practice. I know when I was a student, all of our banquets were held at our schools and we would have a spaghetti supper, right? That doesn't happen so much anymore. So our boosters clubs, which might be an athletic booster club, Friends of Quabbin Basketball, sponsor the end of year banquets for students. And sometimes they're held at locations that offer alcoholic beverages. So this is a huge deal. So I want to call it out to you guys first before we decide to bring this forward to the full school committee.
No alcohol.
So that's,
I'm glad to see that.
just so
No
you,
alcohol.
it really limits where they can go and take the kids. But my thought is, potentially you could take them to a restaurant, right? And just say, no alcohol is going to be served or provided or offered, period. You go in the side banquet room or something like that.
Yep.
But I'm just want to make sure you're all
Oh,
in
yes.
favor of that. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let's play this out.
Yeah.
No.
Let's.
So, some booster committee, et cetera.
Sure.
What, maybe a dozen people, let's say, so they would be like the chaperones, et cetera, and maybe parents of the kids or how? I mean,
Parents,
what are we
kids and
looking at?
coaches typically get invited.
Okay.
Yep.
So the coaches or some adult is going to say, oh, we want to go to this place and they serve alcohol, but we'll make sure the kids don't have it. Number one, so that's on that side. Then you get a little further closer here to say, okay, well, we'll go to this place, they serve alcohol and none of us will have it, but we'll be like in the bar's right there. We really can't circumvent that. It might be an outdoor situation, whatever it is. Or then the third one would be, you're not going anywhere that's going to serve alcohol. If they do, you need a whole separate room. So I have no problem with that, but I think it has to be that the other entities have to understand that's what it is. I mean, the language has to be pretty specific that that's it. There's just like no alcohol served there at all.
Yeah, and I would agree with that, because I think the way that it's worded right now is a little bit of a gray area, because this is that will be offered. So the question then begs, like, where do you exactly draw that line? Is it just that nobody in attendance at that event
In that room.
can get it, or is it you can't have it at this place because they have a bar?
So,
Yeah, and that's the problem. And let me give you a little story. One of my companies, personal predilection, I don't drink. There is no alcohol in my house. My company, when we go to Christmas party, there isn't. It just isn't. Because I'm paying for it and I'm not gonna pay for that. We went to the Hardwick, one year we went to the Hardwick Winery. Well, I said, that's a terrible place to go. Oh, no, we've told them no alcohol. No. Well, I don't believe it, but next thing I know, there's guys going up, they have a bar and they're buying stuff at the bar. Well, we're not, you see, we're baloney.
I-
We never went there again, for sure.
So our proms, when our kids have a prom, right, they may go to let's say a beautiful golf course, have a prom, right? But the bars are shut down. So they're there, but there is no access to anyone in that building at that time for alcohol. That's a clean one, right? That's how it is. That is a school, not sanctioned event. That's a school sponsored event. We control that. I think the challenge is that when the booster programs set this up, there's an element of control that we lose in some ways, and I'm not justifying or, but I think I would like your help with what's the language that feels strong enough that we can all sleep at night, knowing that we say this is our policy.
Nothing available.
What if they're at a place where, okay, the party's over, they've disembarked, now they go around the corner to where the bar is? You know what I mean?
Well,
I mean,
I'm thinking like Hardwick Crossing. It could be out in that banquet room and
Right.
you have this nice party and, okay, we're all done, it's over. And then they all say, oh, let's go over to the bar. I guess, is that their choice?
Yes.
Is that different? Is that?
Well, for liability purposes, it's different.
At conclusion. So I was just thinking, I'm just thinking, for example, like the old mill, right? It has rooms that you can go in that they can make private event
Sure.
rooms and they have the bar downstairs. So my thing would be, it would have to be at the event, the area that the event is in, and that could be
But
an event room, could be, there's no alcohol, there's no drinking by adult chaperones. But to your point, when the event is over, we have no more say.
Control, right, yeah.
You know, and
That's so.
As long as they don't go over and get it and bring it into the event.
Right.
That's what we're saying, which is fine. I think that's the way it should be.
so I just want to make sure I've,
you will have events. I have been to many booster, my boys played all sports, so I have been to many banquets, different locations. And while there may not be alcohol in that room, you cannot control the adults leaving, coming and going in and out of that room. And the alcohol consumption outside the doors of that room. So if it's on the premises, that's why, like the promise.
Hard to control.
Of course it is. However, it's a school event still. We're honoring our Quabbin athletes at the end of their season. This isn't a party of parents that they put together to thank a coach for a great season that they're doing on their own in their backyards. This is still, I think, a school-sponsored event, whether the
Yes.
boosters are paying or not. These are our athletes, our students at an event related to our sports program. So I think we need to really maybe even be a little stronger with
Okay.
this
Mhm.
language. I really do. I hate to be like the one, but you know what?
Nope.
I mean.
Not only do we have somebody that signs the paperwork is given to them, I wonder if we should look at something like that too. Somebody should be a responsible person. If it's a booster group, president of the boosters or whatever it is, maybe somebody needs to have their name down that they're responsible.
Yeah.
To go on what Debbie said, you're always gonna have the cool dad who, oh gee, I give my son or daughter a beer or two at home, whatever, and there are 4 or 5 kids sitting at the table, and I'm gonna be the cool dad, and yeah, okay, I'll get a beer for each of you or something.
Not
That's
even that.
bad.
What if dad said, you know what, I had a bad day. I don't want to deal with this today. He goes out, sits at the bar, pounds a few, and then drives his family home after.
Yeah.
I mean, there
And other
could be
kids.
all kinds of what ifs in this situation. And I just think, even though it is boosters, that's fundraising money that's still part of Quabbin's revolving accounts. That's not money that they have in their own private, this is.
And we have a real example with ROTC. That kid who was
Right.
killed
Yeah.
gets honored every year at the spring ROTC gathering and all, and that's why they have this, the shutting thing after their
Right.
banquet every year where, you go to the banquet, you come, you get shut in for the night.
Yeah.
It's the deal.
Person, And I do agree that we have to have a strong language. But then on the other hand, if you think about how many restaurants could they go to for an event?
I've been to many. They travel.
Yeah. Well, that's-
They will travel.
Yeah, but I'm just saying like,
That don't have a bar.
yeah, that don't have a bar and then that don't offer alcohol. So if we draw a
Well,
line
you
that,
know what?
that it can't be
I've
offered on the
also been
presence.
to many in school buildings or town.
I was gonna say, why can't we just have catered in the
I've
cab?
been to the Barry, I don't know what's the.
Right? Why can't they just hold them here?
Big Pillars, what do you call that one? What did they name that building? The old town hall, maybe?
Oh, yeah, I guess that's what they call it. I mean,
I've had banquets there, usually it's pop-up, all the parents chip in or whatever, and so you don't need to have it at a restaurant.
Just
Right,
as long
Harding
as
Allen,
people
apartments.
understand that that's the scenario they're walking into. I mean, if you go to one of these things and a waitress is like, oh, do you want a glass of wine? Like, people need to know, like, oh, I'm not supposed to drink. You don't want someone being like, oh, sorry, and then like, well, that person's drinking. So as long as it's clear in our policy, but also clear at the event, so no one makes an innocent mistake. That's
how much-
something I would do, a totally innocent mistake, and be like, oh my God, what am I doing wrong? Yeah.
How many of these events do we have?
It's hard for me to say, to be honest with you. This came from our drug-free coordinator, and I think they're, their parents as well as
Sure.
educators. So I could be wrong, but I believe at the end of every season, like there's Quabbin Friends of Basketball, they definitely hold an event. I think there's Quabbin Friends of Soccer. I
Well, all
don't
the
know it.
sports teams, they
Football,
usually, they
I've
used to
been
meet down in the
Harding Allen
cafeteria.
for this.
And I know the track went to the Chinese restaurant. And they
Yummy Garden.
didn't bring the parents. They just brought the kids. So like after school, when they normally practice, that's how they did it. They brought the kids to the Chinese restaurant.
which has a bar.
Which has a bar in it. Yeah.
But was probably cool.
Well, that's what I mean. So
Yeah.
they probably-
Yeah, but it's like, so like if we make it so that no alcohol can be served on the premise, then we are effectively making it so that they can't bring them out to a restaurant. Just to recognize
Correct.
exactly where we
You're
draw.
right, you're right.
Right, but if,
Yep.
if it was, let's say, a basketball team and parents, maybe one parent and some coaches, right? So what are we talking, possibly 30 people? So if you call a restaurant and say, okay, we're gonna come in with meals with 30 people, but no alcohol, is the restaurant gonna say, oh gee, we don't want your 30 people because you're having us close
Some
the
will.
bar down? Would they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Bars their money.
yeah.
Exactly.
So I don't think we could get them to shut the bar down for the entire
Oh, no,
restaurant.
I'm not saying for the entire restaurant,
Yeah.
but for the group, so to speak. It's not an easy.
I think the group has to be responsible.
I do too. They have to.
You know, I mean-
And I'm not saying they're irresponsible.
No, no,
I
no,
don't know.
Yeah, no, I know,
It came to my attention and, we had these folks on the wellness committee and they felt like it was enough of, we're also sort of saying to our students, you're looking at your role models, right? And whether that's parents or whatnot. It's also sort of that lens that, we can get together and have a great time and it doesn't have to involve any alcohol at all, right?
Exactly. And one of those events, like you said, like if you're gonna walk in with 30 people, you can ask a restaurant for a limited menu for your group too. Just say, and they'll accept the
They usually
30
do
people.
for the
And-
boosters, because the money's so tight, you negotiate all that, but
Is it coach
depending, I mean, football,
or,
I've had it.
It's a booster.
Harding Allen
so it's not really the coach?
Usually a parent
We had a
that sets it
full
all up and
room. Like,
organizes
There's a
it.
lot.
I mean, I think you put all the verbiage you want in there, but I think there's always gonna be that one. I always have a beer with my meal or, and I'm like, you don't need to tonight. But, I mean, if you put the word, if we have that, do we have that kind of
Yeah,
control?
it's gotta be crystal clear.
Yeah, I think obviously the policy, but I think we have some sort of affirmation that, I, Joe Smith, am taking responsibility and we have whatever bullets, nobody will drink, blah, blah, blah,
Right, that's all you can do.
And have somebody's name down there. The problem, I guess.
Do we have that kind of control over the boosters? I mean,
I think it could be a gray area, but I
Yeah.
feel like
It is a-
if, I think we
We could
should
ask
do our
for it.
absolute best.
Yeah, you could ask for it.
The problem is, so you have coaches. The problem is you can't, if it's boosters, I think we're okay. Because the boosters a separate organization, even though I know the money and all that.
Right,
to me,
right, right.
You know, the fear is if somebody does get drunk, so you know, if some father or somebody gets drunk and then, like you said, they're driving the kids home, you know, they get in an accident, hurt somebody, this and that. You know, at least we have somebody signature that says, I'm responsible for this, nobody's gonna do this.
I'll take the keys.
We have a.
Yeah, I mean, whatever you gotta
You're
do.
still,
But
you're
what?
still.
Well, we're always,
you know,
we're always gonna get sued
liability
because we're the
still-
deep pocket. I mean,
Absolutely,
somebody
but
anywhere,
the
they're
liability's
just,
still
they're just
gonna
gonna look
fall
for
to
that
us.
thread to say, how can I get the school, you know, the school district into this, you know, if there's a lawsuit. I mean, that's the way I
Why
have to
don't
look at it.
I feel like, why don't I reach out to our legal counsel on this?
Yeah.
I wonder if other schools have
know, yeah.
something. And so as far as passing the wellness policy,
Table it.
When do you need it?
well, it needs to be submitted to, but I can submit it in draft form to
Yeah.
Desi, so it should be submitted this month. So
Okay.
let's just,
When is our
let's,
meeting this month? Because this isn't,
17th,
Next week.
so it's not this Thursday
Thursday,
when
it's
it's
the
supposed to be.
following,
It's the
yeah.
next.
yeah. So let me see what's out there and we'll look at that bullet. And then the other pieces though are like on B, takeaways, gifts and commemoratives will not include any items that promote unhealthy choices such as underage drinking. So, you know, going to a prom and getting a wine glass, we're
That
saying
makes sense.
that would not happen. We're gonna
Yeah.
That
choose to give them
has
something else.
Been presented in this district back when Gromowski was on the school committee. The kids came up, they wanted for the prom to give everybody a shot glass.
Oh.
He said, no, you have to be out of here. Well, you know, we're gonna be drinking anyway, so this can't, no.
Might as well just give them a flask.
I think at my high school prom, I think we did wine classes.
Mine, we definitely did, yeah. So that's
But it's
one.
not, it's not.
And then, any logos on student facing materials, so anything we put in front of kids would represent healthy choices. I can't really remember where that came from, but that would include food and, you know, all of that. So those are the biggies. So let me, reach out to council and see what they have. I'm sure that other schools have gone through this.
Yeah,
And
put this on
then
the
I can bring
agenda.
it back for October.
Put this on the
and
agenda for
November.
the 17th.
Okay,
We'll present it and it'll be on the table for a month.
okay,
So
Yeah.
that'll give us a chance to find out what the recommendation is. And we will have had another meeting by that time. So we can approve that update. So that'll work out fine, I think.
okay, great.
So we probably have to check with Jess, so she will know. So if we put something on the table for a month, but then we change some of the language in it while it's on the table. I mean, part of the point of it being on the table is if somebody wants to
Right.
change language or question it. So if so we never do it. We've
Right.
never done it. So if we actually do change some language, does that
Brings it
start
back
the
up
clock
again.
ticking again?
Mhm.
I don't think so.
I wouldn't think so. I would think
it would.
I would think we could vote.
That's why we're gonna ask Jess.
Right. Yeah,
Agreed.
Okay,
Next.
so do we have a motion to present that?
Yes.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, it's done. AC, non-discrimination and harassment. A
so
vote may be required?
we did talk about this at one of the school committee meetings. And so from the changes in Title IX, there've been significant changes and recommendations from legal counsel to our policies. So what we're saying is if we accept AC, then it takes off the table. We would rescind ACA and ACAB.
Good.
and ACE.
Is that what you
We
recommend?
never get rid of,
That-
it. We
No,
just.
get rid of
Yes.
them.
Yeah, them.
Yeah, so part of it is that before civil rights and Title IX were commingled a little bit in these policies. And now Title IX is really focused on sex discrimination based on discrimination and harassment based on sex. And so, and pregnancy related conditions. So that language is pretty different and specific. Yeah.
Any questions on this?
Is the McKinney-Vento Act federal or
Yes, and that's a homeless
maybe we
act.
should have a site there in parentheses?
I think,
Any
but I'm
other
not,
questions?
I think I'm not sure, but I might see a typo.
Sure, very
First
possible,
page.
Jenna.
1, 2, 3 lines down, sexuation.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, I'm not too hip, but. I know what that is.
Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion.
I thought we did.
For this one.
With edits, right?
Yeah, this-
Oh,
Okay.
I said second.
Okay, we have
I
a
thought
second.
that
Do we
was
have a
the other
motion?
one. I did too. Let's make a motion
Yeah, yes, I
to
know.
accept.
Please motion, Peggy, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, good enough. And that, your motion, Lee, includes rescinding those other three policies, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Sure.
yeah, it says it on the block. It's like,
Yeah.
that's.
Yep. And then class size,
So this is our last topic for the night. So
Yep.
every year at the start of the year, we like to share with you our class sizes. I think maybe in the past we've done less than 14, but this year I did less than 15. And so I just want to point out a few things. So if you've been with us for a while, you know that we have some programs that tend to run some smaller number classes because we're trying to keep those programs afloat and healthy and so on and so forth. So NJROTC is always one of those. Band, chorus, and orchestra is another. Sometimes they hold sort of two groups at the same time. So while the numbers look small, it might be a little bit larger. Our French program, as you know, we have been trying to build our French program back up. So those numbers are a little low. And
Is the two included with somebody else?
so the two, I spoke to Assistant Principal Gil Martin about the two today. So he was looking into that for us. It says semester 1 there, but there's a semester 2 course that has 21 students in it. So he's looking at if this is real
Right.
or not. The integrated math, which seems like no, I'm sorry, it's not integrated math. It's one of the others. It's an IB math. That has 6 students in it. That's partially because of the transition that we've been trying to do with putting integrated math into place. And so we had 6 students that are finishing out this higher level math, and we didn't want to take that opportunity away from them to be a diploma candidate.
precision measurement thing, that what we're doing, ferrets.
Yes, and so that hasn't run in the past couple years, and we had some good interest in this, so we felt like we should run it. The other thing that I want to say to you is this has been a lesson for me because we looked at the numbers in years past. Students don't get their schedules until like August. And so I had a goal. I've been hearing from parents that it's really hard for students not to receive their schedules until right before school starts. And we felt like we were losing a lot of kids to other schools because they didn't know if they were going to get into the classes that they offered. So we had successful effort to have our teachers know their course schedule and for our students to know their schedules much earlier in the summer. So before releasing that in June, when kids made their requests in the systems, we went through all of the low enrollment numbers or what we thought were going to be low enrollment. And so we said, okay, run this, run that, don't run this, so on and so forth. However, this is where you learn. What I
see
didn't
what's
realize,
coming.
yeah, so what we hadn't sort of anticipated was come August, when guidance came back in and students were requesting changes to their schedules, everything that had been in that computer, once it shook out, changed pretty dramatically. And we didn't have a second checkpoint. So I talked to Jason about it today. And we have a plan for that next year. But additionally, he also said that at the start of school, that is when the most sort of changes happens in schedule. So for some of these classes, he said we were at 15, you probably wouldn't have changed it anyways. But then depending on when kids can or cannot take things, they might change within the first 2 weeks of school. But I think we could do a much better job by at least having a second look at it in August, because then we could get to the kids and say, hey, you're in a class of only 6 students, you know, we need to sort of make a decision. We can change your schedule by doing this and you can get the class at this time, but here's how it's going to impact other things. And I don't feel like that was necessarily done. Full transparency.
Do you feel that the new schedule has affected any of the class now? Transitioning schedule now has affected some class sizes, or do you just still think it's from all the other factors you mentioned?
I want to think about that. I don't think so. I think it is based on offerings and enrollment.
Yeah, how do you have a band with 4 people?
Yeah, you don't, you run it with others, you know, so some of these are like, there are some full year classes where the semester classes feed into them. So like band goes all year long, and then you might have some additional kids that do it in semester 1 that don't do it in semester 2, that kind
Well,
of thing.
semester 2 is 6.
Right, but the full year kids go all year. Do you see what I'm saying?
No,
Some students may only do it for half a year.
yeah.
Others go a full year course.
So how many go full year?
So I don't have those numbers for you.
But there's
Sorry, I just had them run the low
40,
ones.
50 kids. for a
Oh,
full
yeah,
year.
you'll see when you come to our
Okay.
concerts, yeah. We have amazing numbers, but
Just the ones.
Any comments or questions?
I have a question on, so like the courses, I'm just like, the top page, like US history.
yep,
Is the reason that it's listed twice, it's just offered at two
two
different
different
times?
sections of 12. Yep,
So two
and
times.
I
But if
asked
it
about
was one,
that.
it would be 24.
Yeah, so initially, we had 40 students signed up for the AP US History, which is why we put it into 2 sections. So the key is that we have to reduce it to 1 section when we know we're only gonna have 24 kids, and that wasn't done, so it fed into 2.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, as I was definitely looking at some of these and just thinking that like those, the numbers should support the class, but maybe not. You said
right,
too often. So.
exactly, yep,
Yeah,
which is a good thing, the interest is there.
So new committee members know, this is a requirement I put in many decades ago. If there's gonna be small classes, we should know what they are and why they are. So when Lee's famous Joe Smith or Mary Smith down the street says, what are you jokers doing running a class with 12 people and we know what it is, we know it exists, and we know why. And these are the specialty, mostly classes, things we want, and I see there's a second reason now. We have a herd of kids coming in behind.
Yeah, so that's the other thing. Our numbers are very robust in middle school. And
What about elementary?
if you like, I will get you the student numbers. I think we typically do that as well. So we will also we've had a decrease in enrollment this year overall, but we will get you the numbers. So you have those. I'll ask Jess to put that actually on the
Okay.
school committee on the 17th.
But Hubbardston,
Hubbardston's looking very solid, very solid. But we wanted to build up our innovation pathway program. We wanted to rebuild French because we lost a lot of students, and we believe that we have interest in it will help us overall if we can spread out some of those interests, that interest to different areas. But that's why, we've kind of held tight on them.
I'm surprised to see so many American Sign Language classes. It looks like they're the later years, but.
For last year, I think.
We have a lot of students that take ASL,
That's what I.
a
thought.
lot, yeah.
Do we have any deaf kids?
We have some hard of hearing students, yes.
They're pretty deaf then, aren't they?
Well.
Are you correcting terminology?
That's what we call them, hard of hearing, yeah.
Yes, you are correcting me. Okay, thank you. All right. Anything else? No questions on that? Okay, see you all in a month.
Thank you.
See us in 10 days or something.